Good morning and welcome to my hobby bench once again. Today I'm going to be showing you an engine that I've had once before, but this was actually a belated birthday present to myself. The other day I was sitting there perusing eBay and happened to come across this thing and about spit my drink out of my mouth when I saw the listing price of this quite rare, I believe, Saito engine. So, without any further ado, let me show you what my belated birthday present is to myself. And it is this. It is a Saito FA130. You can't see the T here because of this special offer sticker, but it's a Saito FA130T engine. Now, before I go any further and open this box, I want to say that let's work under the impression that everything in this box is original to this box. This box and the engine and whatever else is in here, let's just say that it's all original to the engine. And if it is, that means that this engine dates back to 1987, between 1987 and 1990, as per this little sheet from Saito's website. And it shows right here, Saito FA130T, and I don't know if you're going to be able to read it on there or not. It says 1987 to 1990. Now, I've done plenty of other videos on Saito engines where I talk about box colors. And this dark blue with the yellow information or the yellow wording text here has always been indicative of boxes that Saito used in the late 1980s. Or, well, actually, all of the 1980s. So, and the fact that this has a mark on it, but it doesn't have a 1, 2, or 3 or whatever. I don't know how many mark versions they made with such a short production run, according to that piece of paper. This would indicate that this is the first version. Now, like I said earlier, I did have one other Saito FA130T on my channel several years ago, but that was a dual plug version. This is a single plug version, and this is exactly the one that was reviewed, and I believe it was a Clarence Lee review article, which I'll post on here too. So without any further ado, it's a 21.2cc engine. Let's open it up and see what's in this box. Now, I have to admit, I have opened this up and looked at it and touched it some because I wanted to do an unboxing video, but for the life of me, I couldn't just sit there and let this box sit, not be opened. So, here's who I bought it from on eBay. Many of you probably know this Gotta Know Joe Hobbies, Joe Stoltz. And like I said, this thing had a really, really good price on it, one that really I couldn't turn down. So here's the engine. Let's go through these box contents real quick. So it's got our original FA130T stickers or decals, not in the best of condition, unfortunately. It has the stock combination wrench, the 12 and 14 millimeter wrench. Our two exhaust stubs, which are period correct and original. This is just some rogue washer. This is a used engine, by the way. It's not a new in-box engine. This is a washer that did not come with this engine. I can guarantee you that, because it's not a prop washer. I don't know what that's doing in here. These things also did not come with this engine. These are little glow plug clips. So I know for a fact they didn't come with this engine. This is what came with the engine. This type of glow plug clip here. These came with the engine. And it says here, standard accessory, FA90T, Mark II, and FA130T. Connector for plug, one set. So that is original and unopened. This is the accessory package, and it has been opened. High efficiency fuel filter, which must be this item here, which is very faded. Very faded. You can't even read the packaging on there, but that's a fuel filter from Saito, part of the box. And what's this? This is the assembly, or the accessories. So we've got some Allen keys, the one feeler gauge, the 0.1 millimeter feeler gauge that Saito would always provide, and it looks like a washer. Not a whole lot in here, so I believe that there are some things here that are not present, so it may not be the most complete package. But let's look at this engine. Now this engine, as I said, is a used engine. Zoom in just a hair more here. It is a used engine, and you can tell by some of the patina that's on here, it looks like it's been used. Let me see if I've got a glow plug 5/16 drive that I can take these plugs out with, so that we can do a little bit more on this in a few minutes. So I have done my sniff test on it, and this was run a long time ago. It's been sitting for many years is my estimation, because I can tell obviously that it's been run because there's just evidence here that it's been run. And it looks like there's actually a little bit of a ding. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, right here. You can see the ding in this intake tube, which is unfortunate. The high-speed needles turn just as they're expected to. The throttle, when I first got this, was really tight. It was really, really tight. I have just manually loosened it up by doing this. On this engine, it's a dual carb. So you got a high-speed needle for each carb. And it's separated, the intakes, air intakes for the carbs here are separated by this baffle, this steel baffle, so that the carbs don't compete with each other for air intake. Very nice system, but what this means is when you got two carbs, two high-speed needles, you have two low-speed adjustments, which are located within here, which makes tuning this engine a bit tricky, because if it's on the stand like this, if you want to tune it while it's running, you got to reach up under here, and I think I even did that on the other one of these I had when I was tuning, and I think I actually did that. And I'm sitting there tuning one carb at a time. It's not fun. It's challenging. So what I may end up doing is, and that's one of the things I want to ask the viewers and subscribers of this channel, or anybody that watches this channel. This engine, and I know I'm kind of going back and forth here, it has excellent compression. Such good compression. I'm not even sure I can turn that over by hand. And like I said, I have taken the plugs out. I removed the exhaust that was on there. I'm going to put a prop on here real quick so I can turn this over better. I'm going to need to grab a wrench here. I don't have a lot of tools here. Oh wait, I've got use the tool that came with this. This is not the prop nut and washer that came with this engine, because one didn't come with this engine, unfortunately. This is off my 220. So I'm just going to lightly tighten that on there. So it's got really good compression. And to me, the bearings feel fine. You hear that clicking? That's a happy rocker sound. So you got compression here, and then it goes all the way around. Compression, compression, all the way around. Compression, compression, or fire, 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 fire. This is an odd cylinder engine, or an odd fire engine is what it's called. It's not a boxer. That's why it has this strange firing direction or orientation, operation. But see, like here, you can see, I think you can see a lot of, I'll just say it's probably dust that accumulates on engines after they've been run and they have a little bit of oil on the outside. I mean, if I had a toothbrush with me, I could probably brush this off fairly easily. Now, like I said, this engine's got excellent compression and the bearings feel fine. However, I did go ahead and invest in a new gasket set for this and bearings, just in the event that it needs to be, the bearings need to be replaced. And I may do that anyway. But what I'll definitely do for sure is I'll just clean this thing up externally if I don't put it in the ultrasonic cleaner. But what I want to ask the viewers and subscribers is, seeing this engine in its condition, I think this is a running engine right now. I think this engine could easily be run. And maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should just go ahead and go through the effort of mounting it on the bench and running it before I decide to do anything else with it. Maybe the bearings are fine. All I can tell you is this. The way it smells, it has been a long, long time because there's absolutely no scent of oil or fuel residue in this at all. So it's been a long time. All of that smell has dissipated completely. I actually probably need to see if there's air coming out of that. So it's been a long, long time since this engine has been run. I can tell you that for sure. How it was taken care of, I don't know. All I know is these bearings feel pretty good. I mean, I don't hear any noise in them, but you're not really going to hear a whole lot of noise in bearings until you actually get the engine running. And even then, with a twin cylinder, it could make it a little more difficult to hear. So the question still remains for me, do I simply go ahead and tear this thing apart and do an overhaul on it, or replace all the bearings? I won't say overhaul, replace all the bearings and gaskets, or do I put it on the bench first and determine its health and then just do a external cleaning with a toothbrush and some solvent? Those are the things that I'm considering, and one of the things I think, it'd be interesting for the viewers and subscribers to comment on. Now what I want to do is I want to pull these plugs out of here because these are actually the original Saito plugs. Let me go grab a knife real quick. I happen to find, looking through what little hobby remaining items I had left, I found this huge D-cell nye. And it was heavy. I was like, oh wow, there's a battery in there, because I was thinking about just using this because I needed to find another one specifically, so I had two because I knew I was getting a twin cylinder engine. And my other McDaniel nye starter, the battery's starting to go on it, so it's not very good. So I needed another one. So I opened this thing up expecting to see like an alkaline battery that was all corroded and stuff. And instead what I found was this. It's a big nickel metal hydride. It's a 13,800 milliamp hour battery. And I was like, holy crap, I don't even remember ever getting this thing. And I'm like, I'm sure this thing hadn't been used in probably 4 years at least. And I knew it was probably deader than a doornail. So I put it on just a standard little, McDaniel nice charger for, I don't know, overnight. And then I took this thing out to the field a couple days ago and actually used it to fire up a couple engines. So it had enough oomph to light glows. Now how much capacity it has, I don't know. So here, hopefully you can see this, looks to me like an original Saito P2 plug. It looks like it's got a little bit of residue on it of some sort. Now let's see. Can you see that glowing? Yeah, see how bright that thing is? So this thing is good. That plug, let me look at it again, not through the camera. Very bright. That looks like a really good plug. I'm going to leave that there for now. So now we should only have compression in one cylinder. Yep. Unfortunately, I tried shining a light in there, excuse me, to see if I could see what the top of the pistons look like, and really I couldn't do it. I wasn't able to see that. Let's take this other plug out here. And see, it's a single plug version engine. Now, those that are curious or haven't figured it out yet, a 130 is basically comprised of the two FA65 heads. Let's check this plug. Oh wow, that plug looks even brighter. That's interesting. Yeah, this plug actually looks a tad bit brighter. I don't know if you could tell that on the video or not. So, I don't hear any bearing noise at all. I don't feel anything that sounds rough. Now that clicking, clicking, clicking sound you're hearing is the rockers all moving. That's a very happy sound. That's what you want to hear on most four-stroke engines, at least on these Saitos for sure. Now, the next thing I am considering doing is I am considering removing these rocker covers and checking the valve lash on this. But that'll probably be in a separate video, because if I'm going to decide to just go ahead and run this engine, I know it feels like it's got really good compression and all that. I know it has good compression. I want to at least check the valve lash on both cylinders and make sure the valve lash is proper on both of them and set properly. That's something I typically always do on any four-stroke engine anyway. So some of you may know that have been following my channel for many years that a few years ago, just before I moved to Wisconsin here, I gave away most all of my hobby items. So I really I barely have the means to do engine rebuilds anymore, and I didn't really have the motivation to do them until I came across this engine, and now I kind of do. So I got rid of the gear puller. So the thing that I had a gear puller set from Harbor Freight that I had cut out, and you have to modify it a bit so that you can get those tongues to engage in certain different types of engine prop hubs, because they're not all the same. You know, OS, Saito, sizes of the engines, the little groove is not the same. So anyway, I got rid of that. But when I was at a local farm store here called Fleet Farm, and I know I showed one of these on my channel before too, because I did have one of these little battery terminal pullers. This is what this is called. It's a battery terminal puller. And I wasn't willing to go and invest in those Harbor Freight gear pullers again, because I don't have a Dremel to sit and modify them again. I got rid of all of that stuff. This was the cheapest, the least expensive way for me to get a puller to see if I can do this. So, and the reason I'm even talking about this right now is the decision to disassemble this engine is all predicated on the fact of whether I can pull this hub off or not. In fact, let's just do this. Because if I can't pull this hub off with this cheapo little battery terminal puller, then that kind of makes trying to do a bearing change impossible and very unlikely. So what I've got here is I've got my bearing puller and I've got some oil. And I'm just going to put some good pressure on it. So I've got good pressure on that. I've got some 3-in-1 oil here. And I wasn't really planning on doing this. Maybe I'll cut the video, make this a separate video, I don't know. But I'm going to put some 3-in-1 oil in there and let that kind of get in there. And then I've got my heat gun here also. Now, in the past, I did this on video before. What I'm doing here is I'm putting as much pressure on here as that this little battery terminal puller can muster. And then I'm going to heat this thing up. And the application of heat and this pressure should just cause that thing just to pop right off. As long as I'm heating things up, I might as well heat up the rest of this engine a little bit too, and see if I can get that carb throttle to operate a little more freely. So I'm not hearing this thing just pop. It's getting pretty warm, but it's not. I just put another little crank on it. Now I've got this on a high heat setting, so it's going to get really, really warm. Well, it is not just coming off. I got this thing pretty darn warm. Yeah, it just slipped. And I don't want that to happen because it'll mar that up. Okay, it's on there pretty tight again. Let's give it a little bit more oil. So, like I said, this is the test that tells me whether I'm going to be able to rebuild this engine or not. Because if I can't get this prop hub off, getting the crankshaft out and then the bearings out is just not going to happen. So that's why this is a little bit disheartening here, because I've got quite a bit of pressure on it, and I think this thing should be stout enough to do this. And see, if I keep cranking and cranking, what's going to happen is one of these jaws is going to slip up, and when it does that, it's going to mar that shaft or that hub. Now, this carb is really freed up now. And the whole engine should be really freed up because it's all pretty darn warm, but yet this thing is still not wanting to come off, and it's really, really hot. So that's kind of unfortunate. This kind of may lead me down the path of not being able to rebuild this engine without finding another way to get this collet off here, or this drive hub. If I had freeze spray, I could freeze it. I don't have room in my freezer to put it in there, but I mean, you could shock it with cold and hot and cold and hot, and also facilitate that coming off. See, now I'm starting to bend this cheap ass handle. I don't know, maybe I'll just leave it on here, let the oil soak in there a bit more. I don't know if there's anything else I can talk about this engine right now, but this item here is a pump, and this pump basically is an air pump that's driven off the cam lobe of this cylinder here. There's a little pin that goes in there, and it just, as this rotates, it pumps air. And what that does, or pumps air, it pumps oil. It's not an air pump, it's an oil pump. It's a pump. You could pump air, I guess, if it was sucking air. It could pump fluid if it's sucking fluid. But in the cam case here, it's going to have oil from the engine, and it's going to suck that oil, and it's got this tube that goes right back into the crankcase, right at this rear bearing. So that was a mechanism that obviously Saito decided was necessary to continuously make sure that oil gets lubricated throughout the engine. And then you've also got this outlet here where additional oil will come out from the engine so it doesn't overload the engine with too much oil, so everything is not being recirculated. But so this engine is nice and loosened up. Like I said, the final thing I'll do in a separate video is I'll check the valve lash, but now that I've got this engine all warm, I need to let it cool, because you always check the valve lash on an engine with it cool. I'm just a little bit disappointed that this thing didn't just pop off like that. That's really kind of unfortunate. But that's my belated birthday present to myself, and hope you enjoyed watching, and look for future videos on this engine, whether it'll be a run video eventually, or hopefully maybe a teardown video so I can replace the bearings and gaskets in that and get this thing back up and see how much runtime it's really got, because I'm curious. I want to know how much runtime the engine has. So anyway, thank you for watching.